thank you for being there today. It's really an important moment for us all. I think the people that contributed to create this event, and yeah, I'm pleased to introduce you a little bit, maybe the ideas that got us here today all together, and I'm here for that. So thank you very much. So my name is Federico Seragnoli, and this is not working. But of course, these are the practical aspects of technology, since we live in a technological world. And when things don't work, we can repair them, right? Yes, exactly. So if we are here today, it's because, of course, this conference, as anything else that is human-made, is really a production of collective effort. So I'm pleased to gather here the first giant on which shoulders we will stand on. So, of course, if we have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. So this is a quote that is related to Newton, apparently, and what is a giant in this quote is, I think the meaning of this word here is about a person that put a gigantic effort of attention on something that really mattered to her, and then eventually, by doing so, he created some results that could be used for others after. And of course, it's funny to realize that maybe Newton was not the first one having this realization, the fact that it's always a collaboration, because of course we can find the same sentence 400 years before him, and in another text, and historians, they really don't know yet who was the first person who had this idea, this metaphor to talk about this collaborative endeavor of humans. And this is also the point, right? If we get to find an idea that is a good idea, we can just copy and paste it and start from there. If we analyze more the implication of this idea of collaboration, in fact, we realize that we are all at the same time dwarves and giants, meaning that anybody of us try to learn from others that came before him, and by putting his attention to the most meaningful and important matters of his life, he tries to do something. So this is a little bit, how we conceive the human endeavor of understanding and science, of course. So who are the giants that inspired us, to which upon shoulders we are standing on today? I will share some of their views with you in this talk. And so ALPS is really there because of a collective effort, and these are some of the inspiration that got us here. So the first shoulder I think we stand on is, of course, MAPS, so Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. The work of MAPS for the domain of psychedelics is outstanding, and I think many of us all know already about it. But let's say that when this article was written in 2006, it was a really different. It was a really different moment of the development of this field, since nowadays MAPS is creating the second part of the phase 3 human trial with MDMA for PTSD. Okay, just so this is really amazing what they've been doing for the past 35 years. And while being students at the university, knowing about psychedelic research, basically we stumble upon this article that is written in the resource part for students in the MAPS website, right? And so it's pretty straightforward for the title. So you want to be a psychedelic researcher? Really? So how can you really get involved in that? How can you participate in that? And this author goes on giving some tips and ways one could already try to participate in this field, even being a student, an undergraduate. And yes, so he starts with an observation. In his university, Harvard University, there were no student association dedicated to that. So, of course, one thing one could do is to create an undergraduate student organization to get people start to know more about this, to have paper clubs, to have the permission to use a campus, for example, to hold events like a projection of documentaries, to apply for funding maybe, to educate and inform other students and the public at large, and eventually to hold a conference. So this is one big inspiration we had while basically dreaming about doing something meaningful with our attention. So another great inspiration that we got along the journey was, of course, the one from Aldous Huxley. So Aldous Huxley is most well known for this book, Brave New World. Okay, so this is a dystopia in which a society is made up with rigid social classes, in which substances are used to alienate people, and that was not our inspiration. Our inspiration was, in fact, this other book, which doesn't talk about a nightmare, but about a dream, basically. It's an utopia. It's called The Island, and it's a society in which substances are used for different purposes. And as, for example, accompanying someone that has a cancer to deal better with death. And at large, I think for the potential of human awareness to not fight against each other, basically. And so this is an utopia the author wrote after his own psychedelic experiences. And why we got to be really inspired by that, it's because, of course, we were students in the Lausanne University. And eventually, Lausanne is quoted in this book from an English author, right? From a British. So at some point, someone asks to the guru, because in this book we have a guru as a protagonist of this book. And so how did you get to find your way? But that was in Lausanne, during my Swiss education. Okay. So what do you got when you try to be really evidence-based in your reasoning, and really when you love science and you want to use that method for humans and for your society? And so this is an image taken from a paper, the first paper that shows the different connection between different areas of the brain under psilocybin. So of course, nowadays we can use techniques to see what's happening in the brain while under the effect of substances. So what happens when you take science, you mix it with a dream world? Basically, you can really create something that is meaningful and useful, like an association called Pala, as that island, and then you make it a little bit nicer. And this is, another inspirations we really got out of that. But so let's face this question. Is there really a place for a dream world in the science world? So to answer this question, we really, I would like to invite here with us another great giant that inspired many of us. So this is a passage from Paul Feyerabend and Against the Method. He was a physicist by his training, but then eventually he went on contributing a lot in philosophy of science. So how can we possibly examine something we are using all the time, right? This is like how can science can turn to itself? How can the rational thinking can turn to itself to understand a process that, in fact, it's a human process, right? And it's funny to see here that we could. So he's talking about science, but we could implicitly we could put at the place of science here the word consciousness. So how can we possibly examine something we are using all the time? How can consciousness turn to itself to analyze itself? So we know about biases now for cognitive psychology, etc. And the answer is that maybe, as you can read here, we need a dream world in order to discover the features of the real world we think we inhabit. So this is the whole idea, basically, of having a null hypothesis to test in our experiments, to have another culture to see what are the particularities of our culture. And so I think that's also something we can really understand when we deal with science fiction, for example. So science has a lot of ways to imagine itself and to understand itself outside the rational thinking as a human process. As for the consciousness, we can use maybe psychedelics for that. Of course, we are talking about the creative process, right? So, do we know how new ideas, new original ideas get to be created? We don't know so much about that, and this is eventually. That's why when we basically find some, we have organized ways to patent them, to copyright them. New ideas are really valuable and rare. That's why are also really taken seriously and so one should also consider in the narrative of the science basically all the other human expressions. So that's why a lot of science has been inspired by a lot of dream worlds and a lot of arts and a lot of work of arts. And dreams are also really important for humans, right? So we are also narrative beings. Someone at some point started a speech saying, "I have a dream." So that speech eventually changed his society in an evident manner. Someone else said at some point, "Dreams are the golden road to unconscious." So he was a physicist as a training, but then eventually he ended up inventing psychotherapy. So that was Freud. And someone else at some point sang, "You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one." So that was something about human peace, right? Peace on earth, which is, of course, a really effective idea and a really effective way to do a lot of good in this world. So yes, maybe dreams have their places in the human process, which is science. But how then to integrate them? So this is an example of how someone tried to integrate the Island book from Huxley. So Bruce Eisner, in fact, wanted to create a psychedelic sanctuary. And he was inspired by the same book we are talking about, The Island from Huxley. And at some point, he really went effectively through that inspiration of creating basically, psychedelic sanctuary, a community, searching for a German broker that was selling islands, so he could buy one maybe and create Pala on Earth. Okay, so this is one way one could do that. Maybe you know about this other giant. So he's dealing here with a pigeon. So he's really fond to these birds. They are his favorite experimental subject. So this here is Skinner, the founder of the behavioralism, and he put really a lot of attention and a lot of endeavor to understand human behavior, right? And eventually, at the end of his career, he realized that maybe to express his ideas not only in the scientific methodical way, but also in a dream way, in a narrative way, could be useful for others in order to share and to know better his ideas. So in 6 weeks, he rushed and he wrote an utopian book, Walden 2. So Walden 2 as an inspiration from the endeavor of Henri David Thoreau that wrote a book called Walden. So the idea in this book is a society that is revolving around operant conditioning for all the humans that are there to live well together. So everybody is conditioned. Of course, every author then will put his own mind and perspective in his own utopian world, right? So he did it in this way, and he was so powerful and he knew so much about human behavior that eventually we have at least 13 real-world communities that were created out of the inspiration of this utopian dream world book. Some of these communities are still going on, are still there. So now I have a question for you. Did you know about these experiments? So I think this is the point. If one would like really to bring a positive change within a society and to do something, how can he expect doing so while detaching from it? This is, in fact, not working. So if you want to integrate some ideas within a society, maybe you should not follow this example. And this was also really important for us to understand. So if we come back to Island from Huxley and the way we try to understand it and the way we try to be inspired by that, of course there are a lot of ideas in this book, passing from mindfulness-trained birds that are always screaming within the island, attention, attention, or here and now, boys, to let all the people, when they hear them, remember that they have to be mindful. And other ideas about the reforming of education for children, we will just focus on two principles. So one is about human suffering. So this is a quote from that book. So there are two ideas here. The first one is that basically there's a part of human suffering we can really not do so much about. It's unavoidable. It's when we realize as self-aware being that we in fact can imagine our own death, the decaying of everything that's around us. We can even imagine, this in fact the limit of our life itself. So this is a part of that existential distress that we could learn with Yalom as well. That it's really difficult to. It's not going away. So there are many ways to deal with this. So of course we are creative. We can, for example, in the Huxley book, in the Nightmare dystopian book, people use this to use substances to forget about this. But someone else, like Viktor Frankl, would say that we can maybe do some We can do some effort in trying to pour meaning in our actions because of our own values. In any case, this part is really something we have to deal with. But this is 1/3 of it, let's say, as a metaphor, as an example. But let's say that then the 2/3 of that, of the human suffering, is homemade. We make it. We make it because of our lack of kindness, compassion, consciousness, and knowledge about our condition, right? So in this, we can do much. And of course, we created a lot of tools to deal with this part that we ourselves are creating. One of these tools, when the scientific minds out there try to reason about this, is called effective altruism. It's an idea, it's not perfect, but it's just one other tool. It's basically some mathematicians that try to create equations to find a way to do the most good with the resources available. You can go check this tool, maybe it will be useful to you. One other idea, of course, that we took from this book is that for human suffering, you never have a single cure. So this is a poem that all the Palanese health care giver have to learn by heart. I am a crowd, obeying as many laws as it has members. Chemically impure are all my beings. There is no single cure for what can never have a single cause. So, of course, we wanted this conference to be an interdisciplinary one because the human process, human suffering, is really a multifaceted element, right? It's we have to understand it biopsychosocially, and we have to have the most tool we can to try to deal with that. So there is no single cure. Huh? You heard me well. There is no miracle outside there. Psychedelics themselves are no miracle in this. Worst things have been made following the best ideals. I don't even know who said this first, but it's a good idea, right? We cannot just take a tool for granted and just tell ourselves that by using it we are doing the good thing. So just to put a little bit more attention on this, with psychedelics, the worst thing have been made. Sectarianism is a problem. It's also a problem that we can really see and learn about reading the book Islands, of course. Ideologies have been fulfilled by these substances, of the use of these substances. We have lately articles coming out like this, right? So Nazis, white supremacists stockpiling guns and LSD. So it can really go bad, right? And it's not about a substance, it's not about a tool in itself, it's about what we do with that. Also, abuse in therapy and other settings are happened in this world. So the CIA tried with psychedelic as a tool to do some psychological torture and brainwash, giving them to people that were unaware of being dosed. So this is part of history. We should not, we should at least, we should learn from this. And of course, another key element that we can really state really clearly is that you don't have to have taken any kind of substance to be self-aware, to be a self-aware, rational, compassionate person, or even a good therapist. Psychedelics are tools, among others. We can really have the understanding of what it is, human compassion, human suffering, and work really meaningful in that without ever having taken any substances. And also this idea, like, if you got the message, you can hang up the phone, right? So, whether you are someone who wants to do a psychedelic experience where it's safe and legal for your own curiosity, whether you belong to the non-placebo group of a psychedelic research, whether you are a patient that is going through psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, the goal is integration, the integration of that experience and what you can learn from that. The substance is just a tool among others: meditation, breath working, fasting, praying. Humans, of course, have created a lot of tools to get to that state. And of course, when we deal with patients, we don't expect them to take psychedelics every day for years. It's about 2, 3, 4, maybe experiences, and then it's about the work of the integration, right? So in the MAPS protocols, they give MDMA 3 times for PTSD patients. And then you have already outstanding results there that are even consistently on the long term. But what message? What is this psychedelic message that is often recalled by people that used these substances? What is the psychedelic experience? To understand in a rational, secular, Western point of view, in a Western way, this question, I would like to invite here with us in this conversation another shoulder we can count on. So this is Carl Sagan. He's a physicist. He put a lot of attention in his life in creating papers to understand the functioning of the law of physics and the universe. So he wrote more 300 of them. And even being a scientist, he realized at some point, as other examples we saw, that maybe he could find other ways to share his own knowledge about that, right? And one of that was to create a television series about the universe, in which he also had the possibility to create the first 3D animation of the DNA and to walk as a little dwarf in the virtual reconstruction of the Library of Alexandria, for example. So Carl Sagan was really a prototypical astronomer, right? He would have a sort of psychedelic experience just watching at the stars, because he was really fond of this discipline, and he was so much in love with that. He really put so much attention in that. He was really he was also involved with the NASA in sending out there the Voyager 2 probes. So these are the objects that are now the farthest away from Earth that we have ever sent. And at some point, he had an idea, right? Let's put something that really belongs to us humans to these probes that will go outside the solar system. So these were 2 discs he put on these probes. So one is called The Sounds of Earth. And it's a collection of laughter, crying, music, and talks of human beings. And this is about giving some form of extraterrestrial intelligence a way to understand us. So I don't understand it, but it's because maybe I'm here, right? So, but of course, now the Voyager probes are outside the solar system in the interstellar space. In that kind of environment, these 2 disks will not be consumed by time. This means that basically he calculated that when the sun will explode in our solar system and will melt the Earth, these probes will still be there doing their journey untouched. This is completely useless. Like, why should we make an effort to send these things while they will outlive us, right? Again, because of dreams. because of this idea of hope, this motivational feeling. And this giant had also another idea at some point, always revolving to these probes, these Voyager probes. Basically, at some point, he realized that we could turn the camera of one of these probes sent in the space towards ourselves. So this is the farthest away selfie we have ever made of ourselves. And it's a photo of Earth seen by the camera of a Voyager probe. I think in this photo, if we can try to meditate a moment to this photo, we can have an intuition on what it can be, the quality of the psychedelic experience. Because this photo gives us really an idea of transcendence of space and time. So when we realize that the universe is so vast, and for the other elements composing this universe, like planets and galaxies, the time is really passing to another level, right? We feel really small about that. We have this feeling of wonder, right? This feeling of awe, of this sacred feeling of incredible beauty and exceptional situation we are living in, right? And it's a feeling that has nothing to do with religion. It's a feeling that just have to do with the understanding of the complexity and of the exceptionality of all of this. So, in watching at this pale blue dot, this is how he called it, this photo, we can also reconsider maybe the importance of our egos, right? So if you look at that little dot, you can tell yourself all the human beings that existed, basically they existed on that piece of dust in the sky, and most of them are dead now. We are there now. We will die. It's really like, what could we do with that, right? So at some point, continuing this meditation, one could understand this concept of oneness, which is an important part of the psychedelic experience. Basically, if that's here, that's home, and that's us, maybe we could really do an effort to be together and to not make war against each other. Of course, it's a dream, but it's a rational dream, right? It's a useful dream to have. And of course, this is something we can understand rationally, really clearly. Science has given us today a lot of data on how, for example, all things are connected, right? So the biosphere is really a scientific fact. We need the biosphere to be there and to keep on surviving. As for example, the globalization, right? We are really all connected, and something that happens in a place of the world at some point, even in some days, can have really huge impacts on the other side of the world. So we have the tools to understand this rationally, but another thing is to feel it. So there are many ways to do that. And meditating to this picture is a way to get that feeling, I think. So, if we can zoom in now to the here and now of this moment, to this pale blue dot, at the center of this picture, which is Earth, we can see a particular region that is really dear to my heart, a region that is home to one of the best mountains landscape of the world, the Alps. A region that is really proud of the usage and all the culture that has in food and wineries. Of course, I'm talking about about Switzerland, of course. But of course, wherever you go, people of different cultures, they will tell you that their food is the best. And Switzerland is really an exceptional place for the matter of today, for psychedelics and the science around it. We will learn a lot during these 3 days about this. And just to give you some hints about that, but I'm really looking forward to hear the giants that gathered here today with us. Historically, LSD was first synthesized in Basel, Switzerland. Psilocybin was first isolated from the same person in Basel, Switzerland. And of course, also in the recent history, MAPS did some trials in Switzerland in order to get to the phase 3 clinical trial. So Switzerland is really an exceptional place for psychedelics. Because also of research, right? We have 4 universities, maybe most probably 5 soon enough, that are actually doing psychedelic research. Switzerland is also the administrative framework of Switzerland also allowed for an exceptional clinical medical use of these substances, and this is why some professionals in this field could really gather some years of experiences doing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. And this is really exceptional in the pale blue dot landscape. So when we were trying to realize this moment, of course we needed to face the materiality of it, right? So we needed the means to do that. And of course, we would like to thank you, all the people that contributed to that. Okay, this was not us, but we thought it was a good idea, so we tried to copy and paste it, and eventually it works. It worked. Yeah, so thank you very much to all the people that contributed to this collective effort that made us be here today. Thank you. And of course, thank you to all the giants that inspired us, and many others. So we are delighted to show you this intellectual menu that we created for you for these 3 days. So we will have lectures, interdisciplinary ones, of course. There is no single cure, etc. And within the principle of open science, we will record all the lectures and we will make them freely available on the internet after that. You can see them on your booklets. We will have 2 panel discussion on Friday about the transdiagnostic potential of psychedelics. So why psychedelics are now being researched in so many different categories of mental health issues? We wanted to ask that question. The other panel discussion on Saturday will be about, of course, training a new generation of therapists. If we find this approach really so promising, and if science will bake this in a meaningful way, we will have to face this as we will have just to educate a lot of people about this. We will have the screening of a movie on tonight that is depicting the work of one of our speakers, and basically it's about a research being done here in Switzerland on a mountain, giving psilocybin and placebos to a group of expert meditators. That could be a good movie to watch. And of course, since the mind is not always affected by thirst of knowledge, everybody is kindly invited to the networking apero evening on Saturday night. It will be a moment of connection, right? Of exchange of ideas, of contacts, and yeah, maybe a moment to let projects flourish from. Oh, there's a giant coming. From ourselves, like so. You will be invited there. So now I would like really to invite all the people that made this possible here on stage with me. So this is the committee of this conference: Adam Mamrani, Paulina Ponomarenko, Sir Petignan, Maxime, and Joanna Blanc. Thank you very much. They don't see you. So this was really a collective effort, and I am really happy to be there with this beautiful team. Just reach out to us to ask questions, to whatever you would need. During these 3 days, I think I can fairly say that you can count on our shoulders. So thank you very much again. Thanks to all the small and gigantic efforts that made all of this possible. This is starting. Thank you.